Hey there, future teacher, and welcome to your complete study guide for the Praxis 5017. Specifically, today we're talking about reading and language arts section of your upcoming exam. The purpose is to transform our written study guide into a visual learning experience to help make passing super simple for you. All right, so without further ado, we've got 50 slides we can see at the top. This video is proudly presented by teacherpreps.com. My name is Elliot. I'm a credentialed elementary teacher, and I'm here to help make passing super simple for you. Let's start. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to be covering the 6 key components of your Praxis 5017 exam, and we're going to be starting with this top one all the way on the left. It's called curriculum and planning. All right, so now in order to begin, we're going to be taking a look at design, sequence, and how to integrate your reading and language arts curriculum lessons in order to meet the needs of every student in your class, and also how to answer the questions correctly on your test. Okay, so the first competency of the Praxis 5017 is all about showing and demonstrating your ability to plan instruction for every component of reading and language arts. Now, as I read this, I'll try and keep myself out of the way, but also just make sure that you've got your pen and paper out. You're taking notes. Being that active learner, we understand that active learning and kind of engaging your critical thinking skills while you watch a video like this will only enhance your ability to pass your exam. All right, now on your test, you will likely see scenario-based questions like this, which this one reads, a teacher wants to introduce a unit on nonfiction. What is the most effective strategy? Now, I've already highlighted the correct response. That's because this isn't a practice test. This is a study guide helping you get prepared for that. But do make sure that you use our practice test at the bottom of this page. All right, so we can see that the most effective strategy, highlighted in green, would be to teach students to identify and use text features. So if you receive a question like this on test day, notice that I've highlighted the 2 words text features, and because that's a major part of teaching nonfiction. All right, now here's a pro tip for your exam. Always choose the answer option or answer choice that integrates the skills into an authentic style of learning, whether that's writing in particular, so we can take away the isolated lessons and put into lessons that are more in context. So for example, if we're teaching a writing skills lesson, instead of giving our students an isolated skill worksheet, instead we can ask them to write about their weekend or write about their favorite hobby or passion, and then we can take that student journal, we can read it, and then we can provide our feedback, individualized feedback to each student. Okay, now next up, let's take a look at this table in a visual way in order to help plan for future focus of our students. Now, fiction, remember, is all about story elements, while nonfiction is about teaching text structures, just like we just talked about. All right, so at any time, make sure you pause the video when you need it, take a look, go have a deeper dive into the content of the page. Here we can see that with fiction, which is also another way that it might be shown on exam days, a narrative text, which nonfiction is called informational text. It could also be called expository texts. And the key focus here is the story grammar outline, which might include the characters, the setting, the plot, whereas the key focus for an informational text, where you can find that by quickly reading the headings and subheadings and teaching our students to not flip page by page like you might if you're reading a novel, but instead get directly to the point of the textbook that they're looking for, and we can teach them by using the specified nonfiction informational text structures like glossary and index in order to find the main idea and key details that they might be looking for during, for example, a research project. Okay, next, let's talk about sequencing. This is all about scaffolding or helping our students build skills logically, and the key here is from simple to complex. So if you receive a question on test day, remember simple to complex. That's the way that we teach direct and explicit teaching style. Okay, now a classic correct sequence on the test is what we call I do, we do, you do. That's the simple breakdown of the actual technical terminology, which is gradual release of responsibility model. This is a great way to teach, whether it's reading, writing, listening skills, presentation skills, and this is when the first and foremost, the teacher does it. That means the teacher models. Secondly, the teacher asks for some participation, maybe eliciting some questions, get students raising their hands. The students will answer, and then we as the teacher will write their answers or responses on the whiteboard in order to collect all of the ideas from the entire classroom. So even our shy students who might not be ready to participate, they can still learn from their peers. And then lastly, we allow each student to demonstrate their independent ability in order to solve the problem or do the skill that we just taught. So remember this, gradual release of responsibility is an important key term for the language arts section of your upcoming Praxis 5017 exam. All right, now let's talk about the writing process. First up, we have pre-writing, and that's also brainstorming. And I want to show all of these to you in one place because a common question on test day will ask you either about one of these different stages in the writing process, or they will say, for example, the teacher has already done pre-writing and drafting, and then what's next? And then you would be, requested or asked to make sure to identify that revising, for example, in this case, would be the next best answer, but they will have other answer options in the choices A, B, C, and D, for example, editing and publishing, and you'll have to know the order of this. So again, pause the video here, write this down. For me, it really helps when I'm writing things down. Again, that's why we include a workbook here at teacherpreps.com. You already have access to that, so make sure that you are completing the workbook as well. All right, let's keep going. The competency that we're going to talk about next is all about using the in-moment data in order to identify and fix different student errors. So again, remember that this is all about during and after a lesson. So your exam will ask you to identify whether an assessment is a formative assessment or a summative assessment. All right, now a pro tip here, the test loves data-driven instruction. So if only a few students struggle, what the exam will ask you is what do you do? And what do you do in that case is you use flexible grouping strategies. You grab the students who have identified that they haven't yet learned that skill that you just taught, put them in a small group together, and then reteach the topic in a different way. Use a different modality. If at first you spoke it, then this time provide it in writing. And yeah, you can allow a different way for them to demonstrate their understanding in order to assess that they have met the skills that you're talking about. All right, now finally, you must also be able to plan lessons effectively for this test. And so in this case, we're going to be integrating the reading and language arts skills authentically across all subject areas. Oftentimes, the Praxis 57 exam will provide you with some type of question, perhaps a scenario-based question, and they will weave in what type of instruction would be effective for a specific subject. So whether that's science, social studies, reading, language arts, mathematics, and it's going to be an important part in order to, this word authentic is important, right? So we can allow students to connect the world around them as well as their world with the skills that we're teaching. Okay, next up, let's talk about a concept map. For example, a single science unit on weather can be used to authentically teach still within that reading language arts. So that might be reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And again, I have the four modalities right here, where if it's for reading, we might use nonfiction articles. For writing, we might ask them to write their own weather report on the town that they live in. If it's speaking, then they might present that weather report. And if it's listening, then it might be teaching the students to listen actively and then ask clarifying questions to their peers in order to identify that they are both listening, learning, and engaged in the listening process. All right, so next up, let's move to section 2. and let's talk about this major topic, which is the core of reading instruction. So we're going to first and foremost start off with differentiating instruction to meet the needs of all learners. Remember, differentiation is simply adjusting the content, the process, and the product in order to meet the needs of the students in our class. They're all diverse learners, and oftentimes we have different students who prefer different ways to learn. And so we need to understand them in order to meet them where they're at. All right, now pro tip here. Remember, differentiation is not at all about lowering expectations, and you will likely receive a question on test day where you are presented with an answer option that mentions, just give them an easier book to read, and that's not going to be the correct response. So look out for that. Now, differentiation is really all about providing different paths to help our students reach the same goal, that at grade level goal. Now, for example, instead of giving everyone in the class the same book, an effective teacher might provide a strong differentiated approach by providing texts at multiple levels with the same topic. We see this oftentimes. The teacher will have a set of books, and the title is the same, the characters are the same, the plot is the same, but they might actually be written at different levels, and those can be really excellent. Another way is that we can provide audiobooks to our students who can then follow along with the actual normal or regular published book. And so this is their way that we can provide some scaffolding so that they stay on the grade level with their peers. All right, so next up, let's talk about print and phonological awareness. These are the early pre-reading skills. So concepts about print is exactly what it says. It's how a book works. Remember, in English, we open the book, it opens a book the certain way, whereas in, for example, Japan and other countries, their front cover is our back cover. Also in English, we read from left to right, top to bottom. That's not the case in every language, and these are called concepts about print. And, as you're an adult, these seem obvious, but when you are just handling a book for the first time, they're skills that we need to teach directly. All right, now we can also talk about phonological awareness, and this is the auditory skill of hearing sounds. Don't be confused on test day. Remember that phonological awareness is all about sounds. So if you receive a question about checking your understanding of phonological awareness, don't be tricked into selecting a response that has something to do with letter tiles or just writing in general, because that would be more along the lines of phonics. All right, now pro tip we have here. This is a common trap on the exam, phonological awareness, again, purely about auditory skills, while phonics is a visual connection of sound to a letter. All right. Also recall, let's go on next to phonics and word analysis. And phonics and word analysis are the skills that students use to decode, which means to read, including morphology and breaking words into syllables. Word analysis is really the broad category that includes phonics, morphology, syllabication, and recognizing high-frequency words. Whereas fluency is really, it's like a bridge from, it's a bridge to comprehension, and it's made up of three parts. Sometimes we say these are the three arms or three legs of fluency. Very important for your exam, so make sure that you can recall that fluency is made up of, in green right here, accuracy, yellow, rate, and purple or blue, prosody. Of course, these colors are just ones that I chose to make this slide deck, this presentation, but the important part is that fluency is made up of accuracy, rate, and prosody. Accuracy is reading the actual words correctly. Rate is the pace or speed. Remember, it's not about reading fast, it's about reading at the correct pace. Oftentimes, we can teach our students that for different types of texts, we will read at different paces. So when you're reading a novel, you can more than likely read at a faster pace, whereas if you're reading a science textbook for the first time, this will require the student to read closer and oftentimes slower, because the technical terms are usually new in a science textbook. And then the third part of fluency is prosody, and that's reading with expression. Another word is intonation, and that would mean that when a student comes across a comma, they make a short pause, whereas a period would be a full stop. And if there's a question mark, oftentimes our intonation rises at the end of a sentence that ends with a question mark. All right, now key strategies for us as effective teachers will include modeling and choral reading, but also pay special attention when you're actually taking your Praxis 5017 exam to what's called repeated reading. And these are all strategies to meet the needs of our students regarding and specifically for fluency. All right, now let's talk about reading comprehension. This is the ultimate goal of reading, which involves specific strategies for finding the main idea or theme. Comprehension is simply understanding that which you read after you read it. So if you read something and then the teacher or a friend asks what you read about, what was it about, you're able to pick out that main idea. And even better yet, if you can identify evidence from the text that you read in order to support the claims that you're making. All right, now right here we have a key distinction that you'll want to know for test day. This is the difference between main idea and theme. So make sure you take a look at that, and maybe I can scoot myself over here a little bit. All right, so maybe up right here. All right, so theme is, let's go over here first. Main idea, informational text. Again, that's called expository text. This would be like what the author wants you to know. For example, frogs are amphibians. Whereas the theme, we usually speak about that in literature or fiction texts. The idea here would be like, what's the big idea of what we just read in that chapter or in that book? And it might be a lesson learned, like honesty is important. All right, now think aloud is an effective teacher strategy that will more than likely come up on your test. This is a powerful and effective way where we as teachers can model our thinking as we are reading, and we can say, we can ask questions. The author said this, so I wonder if this author wanted me to infer this information about that. So in creating a think aloud for modeling the main idea, step one would be to model before reading. And we can use picture walks when we open up a book and we say, oh, look at these pictures on dinosaurs, or in this case, penguins. I think that we'll be learning facts about penguins. And then during the reading, the sentence says they live in cold places. This one says they eat fish. They seem, to show us key details. And then after reading, we still want to engage in think aloud modeling for our students, and we might say something like, so the main idea is that penguins have special ways to survive in the cold. All right, now section 3, this is all about advanced comprehension. Likely your exam will ask you to analyze a text structure and ask you to demonstrate your ability to compare different sources. So let's get into that right now. First and foremost, we have fact versus opinion versus inference. So make sure that you take a look at the table where a fact is something that can be proven true or false. An opinion is a belief or judgment, and oftentimes we can identify and teach our students to